I work the night shift as a security guard in a medium-sized office building downtown, mostly routine: patrol the floors, check doors, reset alarms, make sure no one's breaking in. But about 2 weeks ago I started noticing something strange. One office light on the third floor would flick on around 2:15 a.m., always the same room, the corner office at the end of the hall. And at first I assumed it was a timer or maybe a cleaning crew who had permission I didn't know about, but when I checked the schedule with the building manager, he assured me the office was permanently locked, no one had keys, and nothing electrical in that room was supposed to be connected to the lighting system during the night. And yet every night, without fail, the light would come on, faint at first, just enough to create a rectangle of yellow against the dark windows, and I started documenting it, jotting down the exact times and days, watching from the stairwell across the hall, and it was always the same. Light flicks on, stays on for exactly 15 minutes, then turns off abruptly, no motion, no sound, nothing to indicate anyone had been inside, and I began checking the locks personally, multiple times per shift, trying every handle, jiggling the keycard reader, even shining my flashlight under the door. But everything was secure, deadbolt, exactly as it should be. And I started walking past the room slowly during my rounds, shining my flashlight through the small glass panel in the door. And I'd see the desk, the chair, the shelves, completely undisturbed, no sign anyone had been there, yet the light would go on, sometimes making faint reflections off the polished floor, making the shadow of the chair stretch toward the door like someone was sitting there just out of sight. And I swear I started feeling watched whenever I passed that hallway, even during the day, my skin crawling whenever I looked at that corner office, expecting movement, even though I knew it was empty, locked, and forbidden. And then one night, after weeks of this, I decided to set up a camera outside the door, a small motion-activated one, hoping to catch a person in the act, anything tangible, and I left it running for 4 nights, returning to the footage the next day, expecting maybe a cleaning employee or a maintenance worker to be revealed, but the camera showed nothing except the light itself flicking on and off, the hallway empty, no shadow, no figure, nothing that could explain it, and the sound didn't change, just the hum of the overhead fluorescent lights, and the fact that the room was perfectly still, completely isolated, made it worse, because whoever or whatever was turning on that light didn't need to open the door, didn't need to move furniture, didn't need to breathe, it was just on, as if the room itself had decided to wake up for a few minutes in the middle of the night. And after that, I began sleeping poorly, waking up multiple times imagining the light turning on in my dreams, imagining a shadow sitting in that chair staring at me through the glass panel. And last week, I was walking the hall at 2:15 a.m., flashlight in hand, trying to ignore the dread curling in my stomach, when the light went on again, exactly as usual, and this time I heard something, faint, almost imperceptible, like a chair scraping lightly against the floor, a soft exhale, and I froze, staring at the door, heart hammering, because for the first time I realized it wasn't just the light, it was something inside the office, something moving, something aware of me, and I backed away slowly, radioing the manager to report a possible intruder. But by the time anyone came, the light was off, the office still locked, the door solid as it had always been, and no one admitted to entering, no maintenance logs, no extra keys issued. And now every night I walk past that hallway on my rounds with my hand hovering over my radio, expecting the light to come on, imagining the shadow of a person sitting just beyond the glass, and I know it's probably nothing, that there's a reasonable explanation, but every night at exactly 2:15, I hear the faint hum of the light turning on, and I realize that whatever is in that room has no need for doors or keys, and that thought is enough to make the hairs on the back of my neck stand straight and keep me from ever sleeping soundly again. When I moved into the house, I thought the only thing I had to worry about was unpacking boxes and figuring out which light switch did what, but a week after settling in I noticed a stack of mail tucked behind the flower pot on the front porch, addressed to the previous owner, a woman named Clara whose name I remembered from the listing, and at first I thought it was just leftover mail the postman had missed or neighbors hadn't noticed, so I brought it inside and set it on the kitchen counter, planning to drop it at the post office the next day. But over the following nights more mails started appearing in odd places, slipped under the door, folded into the mailbox in ways that made it obvious someone had put it there after dark, and I realized with a sinking feeling that this wasn't normal misdelivery, The letters were personal, not bills or advertisements, things like handwritten notes, envelopes with checks, invitations, and the handwriting was clearly familiar to Clara, intimate and precise, the sort of thing only a friend or family member would send, and I checked with neighbors who had known her and they shrugged, saying she'd moved months ago and hadn't left anyone responsible for forwarding her mail, so I figured the post office was screwing up, until one evening I was taking out the trash and saw a faint figure across the street, crouched near the curb, rifling through the mailbox across from my house where the sidewalk met the road, and when I blinked they vanished, leaving no sound except the rustle of paper in the wind, and that was when the unease started to sink in, the idea that someone had been coming back here, maybe every night, just to gather Clara's mail, and worse, that they might still be doing it while I slept, quietly watching, quietly handling things that should have been delivered elsewhere, but always stopping when anyone approached, like a shadow that knew exactly when to retreat. I started setting up small cameras, motion sensors, even sticky notes on the mailbox so I could see if it had been disturbed, and over the next week, every time I checked the footage, there was nothing, no one on the street, no movement, yet the mail continued to appear inside the house in the most improbable places, tucked behind curtains, wedged under the couch cushions, stacked on the kitchen table when I returned from work, and each time I picked it up, I could feel the weight of eyes in the dark, the subtle sense of being observed by someone who knew when I left, when I returned, someone patient, meticulous, collecting what wasn't theirs, and I called the post office to report suspicious activity, but they told me without direct evidence there was nothing they could do, and the police seemed reluctant as well, warning me that mail theft cases without fingerprints or video were hard to prove, and so I began checking the property obsessively, walking the perimeter in the evenings, looking for footprints, tire tracks, anything. But found nothing except the occasional scuff near the mailbox or faint marks in the dirt that had faded by morning, yet the mail kept coming in, still addressed to Clara, still appearing in places I hadn't put it, and one night, around midnight, I woke to the sound of shuffling paper just outside my front door, quiet but deliberate, and I peeked through the blinds to see no one, just the faint movement of shadows from the streetlight. Yet when I opened the door the next morning, another stack of letters had been left under the welcome mat, each envelope folded neatly, as if someone had handled them gently, not in a rush, and at that moment I understood that whoever had been collecting Clara's mail had been here all along, silent and invisible, patient enough to leave no trace, and I realized with a chill that it didn't matter that I lived here now. The previous owner's life, her correspondence, her routines, were still being watched, handled, catalogued in the night, and I was now the one waking up to it, wondering if the collector would notice me noticing, or if one night I'd see them lingering in the darkness, still gathering what didn't belong to them, and there was nothing I could do to stop it, because whoever they were, they had already memorized every corner of the house, every creak in the floorboards, every shadow on the porch, and they would return. It started with a single friend request on social media from an account I didn't recognize, the profile picture blurry at first glance but somehow familiar, and when I clicked to zoom in, my stomach dropped. It was taken from outside my apartment window, the photo showing the small balcony I have, my plants, the little chair I keep tucked against the railing, and I immediately blocked the account and told myself it was just someone who lived nearby, a neighbor or maybe a passerby who had snapped a picture without realizing. But the next day another request came, this time from a different account, the photo sharper, showing the corner of my kitchen visible through the sliding glass door, the sunlight hitting my counter in the exact pattern it had been that morning, and panic started to creep in, because I live alone, and no one should have been photographing my home, yet the account's profile was brand new, no friends, no posts, just that single image, and I began checking all the windows, locks, and curtains, convincing myself I was imagining things, until another request appeared a week later, showing a nighttime shot of my bedroom window with the lights on, the blinds slightly open, and me sitting at my desk studying, oblivious to the camera, and I felt my hands go cold, realizing that whoever was doing this had access to my exact schedule, knew when I was home, when I worked, when I slept, and every morning I started looking for shadows outside, strange figures on the street, cars parked a little too long near my building, but I never saw anyone, not directly, only the evidence in the photos, the subtle proof of observation, and when I tried reporting the accounts to the platform, they said the images didn't violate any rules, that they couldn't take action because there was no harassment, no messages, just a friend request with a picture, and the requests kept coming, each one more invasive than the last, showing angles I had thought impossible to capture from the street, my curtains open in ways I never intended, my personal items visible in detail, and I started changing routines, keeping lights off, closing every blind, moving furniture around, but it didn't matter, the photos kept coming, and the accounts always had no friends, no posts, always empty profiles, and every time I scrolled past them I felt my chest tighten, knowing that someone, somewhere, was choosing when to watch, when to snap the pictures, when to press send, and I could never know who it was, and the worst part is, I've started leaving the room whenever I hear my phone ping, afraid that the next request will show me something I shouldn't see, and sometimes I catch a flicker of movement in the corner of my eye outside the window at night, a shadow that doesn't belong to the streetlights or the neighbors, and I realize the person who's taking these photos isn't just online, they're still out there, somewhere on the street below, waiting, always waiting, and there's nothing I can do to stop it.